Hello, everyone. My name is Fizza Khan, founder and CEO of Silver Regulatory Associates. I'm thrilled to be here in San Francisco for SF Funds Week, where we are doing amazing things such as meeting my friend, Dave Rothschild, who is a partner at Cole-Frieman Mallon. And we have been just inundated with information about the crypto space, the regulatory landscape around crypto and digital assets. And I am very happy that Dave has agreed to join us in this next series and installment of our Educational Hub video. And what I wanted to know from you, Dave, is what's going on right now? What is the state of affairs with the crypto landscape in 2025?
Well, you've come to the right place, Fizza.
Well, thank you, Dave.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me, first of all. I'm really excited to be doing this with you. So a common call I get these days from clients is, well, now that the regulatory uncertainty is over, and now that we've solved the problem of regulatory uncertainty, it's all hands on deck, let's go, pedal to the metal. And I tell people, things are good right now, but the era of regulatory uncertainty is not yet over.
Not over.
And I like to describe the state of the American regulatory environment as coming in three layers. And you can think of them like a ladder with three rungs.
Okay.
And so the bottom layer, the bottom rung of the ladder is informal SEC guidance. What does the SEC say? What is the tone of their public pronouncements? What are their informal statements? What no action letters are they putting out there? What are they doing that's not formal rulemaking?
Exactly.
And I call this rung the vibes rung, because it's all about vibes.
Vibes rung, wow.
Right now, the vibes are great. The vibes have done a complete 180 from the Gary Gensler era.
Yep.
We are in an era where the SEC speaks positively about crypto. They invite industry titans into Washington, D.C. to participate in roundtables, tell the regulator what kinds of rules we need. They're issuing no action letters. They're putting out the statement like the meme coin statement that is saying to the world that certain digital assets are not securities. And so the vibes are fantastic. But vibes can change really fast, as we have seen in the last 12 months, right? The prior SEC had a completely different viewpoint on digital assets, treated them completely differently. And this SEC came in and literally it was like the switch flipped and all of a sudden the vibes are great and things are good. But are you going to invest a ton of money in a business based on good vibes? Maybe not.
Probably not.
I think you want more certainty than some, flowery language coming out of the SEC.
Correct.
But if you're investing in a business and you're going to grow something, the rules are not going to change on you in a dime. And 3 years from now, 4 years from now, there's not going to be a new administration who has a totally different set of priorities and brings a different approach to regulating the industry. And so we're on the vibes layer. The vibes are great. But we've got more climbing to do.
We need more climbing and we need more of a foundation, a stable foundation, if you will.
Exactly.
So what's the second rung?
So the second rung of the ladder is formal SEC rulemaking. Now the SEC is a regulatory agency that regulates securities transactions primarily. And they can make rules that affect the industry and that are not so easily changeable. The SEC can make rules, and sure, the next SEC could come in and change those rules, but there is a full administrative process they'd have to go through to do that.
Correct.
It would take time, it would take political capital, it would take energy. It's not just coming in and changing the vibes.
That's right.
So the SEC could issue new formal rules over the next few years while there's a friendlier SEC in charge. And those formal rules would have a better chance of standing the test of time and weathering a change in the political winds should one occur in the next federal election. So that would be the second rung of the ladder.
Just very quickly on that second rung.
Sure.
What's the likelihood of there being any new formal rulemaking, given that all of these proposed rules that the previous administration had put forth were completely disregarded, and now we're obviously in a friendlier environment for crypto and digital assets, but what's the likelihood that that formal rulemaking will actually take place? So
I think it's actually pretty high. And,
wow.
And I think what you're seeing, what you alluded to just there, what you described just there, with prior rules that had been proposed but had not yet been finalized.
Correct.
Then the vibes changed, and the new SEC came in and said, well, these rules are not very friendly to the crypto industry, so we're going to ditch them before they become final. This SEC has a chance to propose new rules and to finalize those rules such that if the next SEC comes in and wants to take a more hostile approach to the industry, it will be much more difficult to do so without going through a more involved process.
Very interesting.
I actually think that this SEC has a decent chance of doing some constructive rulemaking in the next 3 years. And I think the most obvious and maybe the most impactful for a lot of our clients in that regard would be the custody rule.
Exactly.
And that's a great example of, the prior SEC proposed updating the custody rule to deal directly with digital assets, but their proposed way of doing that would have made it very difficult for registered investment advisors to invest client assets in crypto.
Exactly. So it kind of was the antithesis of being crypto friendly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was crypto hostile, 100%. Right. And so the new SEC came in and said, we're not going to finalize that rule. Thank goodness it wasn't finalized because it would be much harder to undo if it had been.
Right.
And I'm fairly optimistic that they're gonna issue some new proposals and they will be able to make progress on finalizing a new updated custody rule sometime in the next, before this administration ends. That's my optimistic take.
That's you heard it here first, folks. I'm really interested to see how that path actually comes to fruition.
Yeah.
So, third rung?
So we got to keep climbing, though, because an SEC rule, even a formal rule, can still be undone by the SEC.
That's right.
They could just go through the process again, and if there's enough political winds behind them, maybe they would undo a formal rule. So the top of the ladder, the highest, the truly achieving regulatory clarity will be when Congress issues new legislation that clearly classifies digital assets. Here's when they're a security. Here's when they're a commodity, here's when there's something else.
Correct.
And we've seen a little bit of congressional movement this year in the sense that we got the Genius Act. We now have stablecoin legislation, the first federal legislation dealing directly with digital assets that was passed into law.
Correct.
The real sort of, holy grail, for lack of a better term, is a market structure bill, something that very clearly defines what these assets are, when they transition from being one thing to another thing, and what regulatory agency has jurisdiction over them at each point in that evolutionary process. And that's when we're going to have the clarity we all seek.
Indeed, indeed. So taking these three rungs that you've described, how has this impacted the way that you're dealing with managers, especially in the fund formation area? Like, are you doing anything specific? Tell us a little bit more about what you're seeing in your practice.
So I don't think we're doing anything differently now than we were a year ago or 5 years ago or 8 years ago even. I think what's different now is that we're kind of we're almost back to the beginning in the sense that when I first started working on funds that are investing in digital assets, the managers came to me and said, well, these are not securities and therefore I'm not acting as an investment advisor. And my fund is not an investment company. It doesn't need to be exempt under 3C1 or 3C7. And we always said, well, hold on there. Let's pump the brakes. We don't know that these are not securities. Pretty high likelihood, at least some of them are securities. And the risk to taking that position and operating a business, building a business on the basis of this position that they're not securities is pretty high.
Right.
And it's not something that I would recommend. And that still hasn't changed.
That's right.
That still hasn't changed. So, but I am getting that question again. People are reading the news, they're hearing what the SEC says, they're citing the meme coin statement, the 00 no action letter, and they're saying, oh, look, the SEC says crypto assets are not securities. And it's like, well, let's pump the brakes a little bit. That's not quite what they're saying.
And we can't forget about the many enforcement actions that came before this administration dealing with that exact same issue.
That's right.
And although we are in a much more friendly crypto environment, it doesn't mean that that actually gets disregarded or thrown away.
That's right.
Hence the approach that we continue to take as we deal with these types of managers and funds.
That's right. I mean, I'm still telling people, you're acting as an investment advisor. Almost certainly you should comply with investment advisor related regulations. Your fund is probably an investment company and should rely on either 3C1 or 3C7.
Correct.
And so, things haven't changed, but we're cautiously optimistic that things are moving in the right direction.
Can we touch on very quickly tokenization?
Sure.
What are you seeing? Do you think that is something that will continue to catch even more tailwind and propel us into something? I think that could be very interesting to a broader investment public.
I think so too. And I mean, I'm a big believer in tokenization of real world assets.
Yes.
And I'm a big believer in moving as much as can be moved onto the blockchain. I'm a little bit skeptical today about the idea of tokenized funds
Yes.
themselves, like where the interest in the fund is itself tokenized and sold to investors as a digital asset. I think there's no question in my mind that interests in a fund vehicle are going to be private securities, whether they're represented by a token
Sure.
or not. And so given the restrictions on transfer that come with private securities transactions, I'm a little skeptical that tokenized funds themselves are at a point where they're ready to take off, but seeing a lot of inquiries about it. More and more every day.
Every day, indeed. So before we wrap up and I let you get back to doing the great things that you do, can you give us a little bit of a snapshot into what you think 2026 holds for not only private fund managers that are dealing in crypto and digital assets as an asset class, but just with respect to the crypto industry generally?
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Very bullish, very bullish. Things are going to be good. The first thing I'm looking at, primarily, and what we've already discussed here, is custody rule updates.
Agreed.
This remains one of the areas that is really hindering asset management in the crypto space. Registered investment advisors that invest client assets in crypto have a very hard time complying with the letter of the custody rule at all times, and it is in desperate need of an update to account for that. Because as long as there's this regulatory uncertainty, people are going to be averse to taking risks. People are going to be averse to starting businesses.
True.
And so I think that's the primary thing I want to see specific to funds and asset managers.
Okay.
But I think writ large, the environment is really good. There's a lot of optimism.
Indeed.
I know, in the industry, people are very excited about what's happening at the regulatory level. And so I'm excited to see what innovation lies ahead.
We are very excited as well. Dave, thank you so much for your time today.
Of course.
And for your valuable insights. For more information about Cole-Frieman Mallon, please contact Dave. He would be happy to help you. We will make sure to put his information in the show notes. And if you have any questions or concerns about the regulatory aspects of your fund, your management company, or even how to navigate this very interesting space, feel free to contact us at Silver Regulatory Associates. Thanks so much, Dave.
Thanks, Fizza.